Comment down below where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karen. Samuel Grant always thought the most dramatic thing about Oak Ridge Lane was deciding whether to slow-cook brisket or baby back ribs for Sunday dinner. A 40-something insurance adjuster with an affection for lawn chess and Motown playlists, he enjoyed a life so predictable he could practically set his watch by the rhythm of the neighborhood sprinklers. That blissful monotony evaporated, however, one breezy Tuesday afternoon, the day Karen Henderson swaggered into his story like a cliffhanger plot twist. Earlier that morning, Samuel had filmed a quick intro for his fledgling backyard barbecue channel. Drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from, and hit subscribe if you love comfort food and calm vibes. He packed up the tripod, convinced the biggest choice left on his agenda was whether to marinate tomorrow's wings in honey chipotle or classic Carolina vinegar. By sunset he would discover that condiment debates were child's play compared with managing a full-blown suburban spectacle. It started innocently enough. Samuel had just tightened the final bolt on his aging porch swing, a cedar relic that creaked more than it rocked, when he noticed a figure striding across his perfectly edged Kentucky bluegrass lawn. The woman's face glowed a shade of tomato red that clashed spectacularly with overprocessed golden highlights, giving her the look of a storm front wrapped in a boutique sundress. Even before she spoke, Samuel sensed that his evening playlist was about to switch from Marvin Gaye to high-octane reality TV. Karen was notorious in town for treating diversity like an optional seasoning. Pleasant in tiny sprinkles but unnecessary in her main dish of life. To Samuel she often offered a shallow smile and a polite clutch of her designer purse, as though afraid his ordinary khakis concealed some unpredictable threat. Still, he tried to meet every neighbor with courtesy, and when she stepped onto the porch he offered what he believed was a disarming grin. "Samuel," she began, her voice dipped in a syrupy sweetness reserved for holiday newsletters and suspicious compliments. "So glad I caught you." The inflection floated like a lullaby, but the undercurrent pulsed with impending demand. He waited, wrench still in hand, pretending not to notice that the edge of her sandal had knocked one of his Longanone defenders face down in the mulch. Behind Karen shuffled her adult son, lank hair, slumped shoulders, t-shirt advertising a vintage gamer console. If enthusiasm could be bottled, he looked like someone who'd cracked open the container, taken one whiff, and decided the effort wasn't worth it. Samuel offered the young man a friendly nod, the kid half shrugged before returning his gaze to a smartphone screen. Karen inhaled grandly, chest puffing like a rooster auditioning for a sunrise. "You probably heard the wonderful news," she said, voice lilting upward as if the entire universe awaited her reveal. Samuel, who had heard no such news, merely raised an eyebrow and waited for Act 1 to continue. Somewhere in the distance a wind chime tinkled, underscoring the moment with unearned tranquility. For a split second Samuel caught himself wishing he could rewind the scene, maybe duck inside for ice water, pretend he hadn't seen her approach. Too late. The game had begun, and Karen held the ball. As she opened her mouth to deliver a line that would forever change Tuesday evenings on Oak Ridge Lane, Samuel realized he was stepping into a living mashup of Desperate Housewives and Seinfeld, minus the laugh track and plus a hefty dose of entitlement. In that instant, wobbly porch swing creaking at his back, late-day sun glinting off Karen's oversized sunglasses, Samuel Grant had no idea he was about to become the reluctant protagonist in a neighborhood saga destined for group text infamy. But he could feel the wind shift, hear the hush of an audience gathering behind closed blinds, and sense that the next words out of Karen's mouth would yank him out of brisket-scented peace and drop him squarely into the spotlight. Samuel Grant barely had time to wipe sawdust from his hands before Karen Henderson launched into the wonderful news. Her son, whom she finally introduced as Dylan, had been accepted to Lakeside Tech Institute, a private college famous for glossy marketing brochures and eye-watering tuition. Karen flourished the acceptance packet the way a stage magician reveals a dove. $48,000 a year, she proclaimed, letting the number hover like confetti. Samuel offered a cordial, "Congratulations." He meant it, any milestone for a young adult deserved a nod. But before he could add a second sentence, Karen leaned in, perfume wafting like a sneak attack. "We've all seen how successful your online barbecue channel is," she cooed. "It's only fair that a neighbor as fortunate as you invests in the next generation." Samuel blinked. Surely that was a rhetorical flourish, not an invoice. Yet Karen's expectant smile said otherwise. Dylan rocked on his heels, thumbs flicking his phone screen, apparently oblivious to the fiscal grenade his mother had lobbed. Keeping his voice steady, Samuel explained that, while Oakridge Lane friendships were priceless, college tuition was not. He had a mortgage, aging parents in Florida, and a daughter starting kindergarten next fall. Karen waved these trifles aside like pesky gnats. "We shoveled your driveway during the ice storm," she reminded him, as though scooping 2 inches of powder bought a 4-year scholarship. When logic failed to melt her entitlement, Samuel tried gentle alternatives. "Have you looked at FAFSA aid, or community college transfer paths? Dylan, trade skills like HVAC or coding boot camps are booming." Dylan glanced up, cheeks flushing, then muttered something about wanting the full college experience. Karen's posture stiffened. "Loans are predatory, and blue-collar work is beneath my son," she snapped. The syrup in her voice crystallized into rock candy. "Besides, diversity grants favor students like you, Samuel." The implication curdled the spring air. Samuel inhaled through his nose, counting to 5, his late mother's recipe for defusing neighborhood fires. "Karen, I respect your ambition for Dylan, but my bank account isn't your scholarship fund." He gestured toward his half-repaired swing. "If elbow grease counts as wealth, I'm a billionaire, otherwise, I'm just another guy with splinters." A vein pulsed at Karen's temple. She thrust the packet closer, as if a second look might hypnotize him. "Be reasonable," she hissed. 48,000 is pocket change for someone with sponsors and ad revenue." Samuel almost laughed, his fledgling channel barely covered sauce ingredients. Neighborly civility frayed further when Karen accused him of lacking community spirit, a cardinal sin on Oakridge Lane, where the HOA newsletter trumpeted block parties and potluck virtues. Samuel held the line, generosity was voluntary, not extorted. At last Karen's theatrics reached a crescendo. She jabbed a manicured finger toward Samuel's Ring camera. "The entire world will see how selfish you are," she declared, before pivoting on leopard print wedges and marching Dylan back across the lawn. One lawn gnome lay decapitated in her wake. Samuel watched them disappear into their red brick colonial, his heart alternating between pity for Dylan and disbelief at Karen's audacity. He straightened the gnome, then retreated indoors to jot notes for his next barbecue video. Little did he know, the recipe in progress was nothing compared with the neighborhood stew Karen was about to boil over. That evening, the cul-de-sac glowed under sunset pastels while Samuel loaded charcoal for a test cook. Children chased fireflies, a sprinkler tick-tick-ticked 2 doors down, and somewhere a radio played Sam Cooke. On the surface, Oakridge Lane looked unchanged. Yet inside Karen's house simmered a grievance soon to bubble into shrill accusations and a frantic call to 911. Sparks that would ignite a spectacle brighter than any backyard bonfire Samuel had ever hosted. Thursday afternoon brought warm sunshine and a deceptive calm. Samuel, reviewing footage for his next upload, heard the unmistakable crunch of hurried footsteps on gravel. He opened the door to find Karen mid-rant, brandishing her phone like an Olympic torch. "You forced my hand," she spat. "Since you refuse to invest in Dylan, I'm charging you with harassment and discrimination." Samuel's eyebrows shot up. "Harassment? Karen, I only declined, save it. The authorities will sort you out." With that, she thumbed 911 and launched into a fantastical narrative. Samuel allegedly mocked Dylan's dreams, brandished wealth to demean them, even threatened physical harm. Her shrill voice projected down the block, luring curtains aside as neighbors peeked out. Samuel stepped onto his own porch, phone in hand. He triggered the camera app and spoke calmly into the lens. "Documenting a false report. I have not threatened anyone." A text pinged to Marcia, Oakridge Lane's unofficial neighborhood watch maven, so a neutral witness could monitor the commotion. 6 minutes later, twin police SUVs rolled up, lights swirling candy blue and cherry red across manicured lawns. Officer Jordan Riley and Officer Elena Brooks emerged, professionalism gleaming off polished badges. Kids halted mid-scooter, retirees set down iced teas for live theater. Karen launched her opening salvo before the officers reached the first step. "That man refuses to pay my son's tuition because of prejudice. He's verbally abusive and rich beyond belief." Dylan stood behind her, mortified, trying to melt into the doorway. Officer Riley lifted a palm. "Ma'am, we'll speak with you in a moment." Turning to Samuel, he asked for his account. Samuel produced phone footage, the tuition packet, and last year's tax return showing decidedly middle-class earnings. He also offered his YouTube analytics, moderate views, modest sponsorships, hardly hedge fund territory. Brooks questioned Karen next, scribbling notes while Karen described Samuel as a menace hoarding wealth. Dylan, prompted, admitted Samuel had never raised his voice. He muttered, "Mom, can we please go inside?" Words lost in Karen's tirade about reverse discrimination. Riley inspected Samuel's outdoor cameras, timestamps showed cordial conversation only. No threats, no slurs, no physical aggression, just a neighbor politely declining to bankroll another's education. Finally Brooks returned the phone to Karen. "Mrs. Henderson, filing false police reports is a misdemeanor in this county. We see no evidence of harassment or discrimination." Karen's cheeks flamed. "You're taking his side." She thrust a finger at Samuel. "He's sabotaging Dylan's future." The officers remained unmoved, advising her to pursue legitimate financial aid instead of extortion. In a last-ditch gambit, Karen howled, "I'll sue the HOA for allowing this hostility." At that, Dylan's facade cracked. "Mom, please stop," he whispered, tears prickling his eyes. But Karen wheeled around and, in a startling flash, lunged toward Samuel, hands clawed. Reflexes kicked in, Brooks intercepted, Riley secured an arm. In seconds Karen found herself cuffed, furious threats dissolving into incoherent sobs. Dylan, white as printer paper, sank onto the porch steps. Officer Brooks radioed for a transport unit, citing attempted assault and false reporting. As Karen was escorted to the back of the cruiser, cell phone cameras from half the cul-de-sac documented every second, 21st-century lanterns lighting the town square. Samuel's stomach knotted with a mix of relief and sorrow. Nobody relishes seeing a neighbor hauled away. Yet boundaries had to stand, or communities crumbled. When the cruisers rolled off, lawn chatter erupted. Marcia patted Samuel's shoulder. "Got the whole thing on video," she assured him. "You're covered." Another neighbor offered a spare brisket rub for stress relief. Despite the levity, Samuel spent that evening compiling files, camera clips, phone logs, witness statements. Better to be prepared, Karen's storm might not be over. Inside, he texted his sister in Dallas, "Remember my peaceful street?" "Yeah, about that." He then sat at the kitchen table, ribs defrosting nearby, and wondered how Oak Ridge Lane would heal from a spectacle that felt equal parts sad and absurd. Tomorrow, he suspected, would bring headlines nobody had ordered but everyone would devour. Sunrise painted Oak Ridge Lane gold, but tranquility proved fragile. Local news vans arrived before trash pickup, antennas sprouting like alien flora. A chopper from Channel 7 hovered, imaging the "Tuition Gate takedown," as the scrolling banner later dubbed it. Samuel, coffee mug in hand, declined interview requests, deferring to Officer Brooks's pending report. Nevertheless, snippets of last night's footage aired on breakfast broadcasts from Des Moines to Daytona, a startled Samuel, a ranting Karen, shiny cuffs snapping shut. Meanwhile, Karen spent the night at county intake. A court-appointed psychiatrist flagged her for acute stress and possible delusional impulses, prompting a 48-hour hold at Maplewood Behavioral Center. She exited the cruiser in designer wedges, laces still intact, dignity less so, and vanished behind double-locked doors. Back on Oak Ridge Lane, the HOA board called an emergency virtual meeting. President Lyle Bonner struggled to mute incoming pings as members debated damage control. Some feared property values dipping under sensational glare. Others suggested a block potluck to rehumanize the narrative. Samuel listened quietly, agreeing only to share his videos with their attorney. Dylan, now staying with his Aunt Marjorie across town, sent Samuel a brief apology text, "I'm sorry for Mom's behavior." Samuel replied that everyone deserves a fresh start, leaving the door open for further conversation. By lunchtime, national outlets framed the saga as Exhibit A in entitlement culture. Talk show pundits dissected Karen's audacity, while finance bloggers praised Samuel's fiscal boundaries. Hashtags #tuition tussle and #neighborfromfeehell trended for 8 hours. Yet Samuel's primary concern was the human fallout. Through Aunt Marjorie, he learned Karen's bail hearing might hinge on her mental health evaluation. County mental services staff recommended outpatient therapy and budget counseling, but the final decision rested with a judge on Monday morning. Saturday, Samuel filmed a gentle update for his barbecue subscribers, no names, just a reminder that kindness needn't equal capitulation. He seasoned ribs with a new maple chipotle blend, explaining that boundaries, like dry rubs, bring out the best flavors when applied evenly. Comments flooded in, some supportive, a few trolling, many requesting the recipe. That evening, the cul-de-sac gathered for an impromptu driveway circle. Folding chairs formed a ring, citronella candles flickered. Marcia read a statement from the HOA affirming zero tolerance for harassment while urging compassion for mental health struggles. Neighbors shared mixed emotions, sympathy for Dylan, frustration at Karen, admiration for Samuel's composure. Beneath string lights, he admitted fatigue. "I never wanted fame, just good food and quieter days." Lyle offered to mediate future disputes. Another neighbor volunteered a doorbell camera discount code for anyone feeling uneasy. Community, Samuel realized, had stretched but not snapped. Sunday passed without sirens. Kids skateboard, sprinklers arched rainbows, and Samuel's ringtone stayed blissfully silent. But early Monday, court updates arrived. Karen was granted conditional release into outpatient care, contingent on therapy, debt management sessions, and zero contact with Samuel for 6 months. He read the notice twice, processing relief and residual sadness. Nobody sets out to become a cautionary meme, yet here they were. Oak Ridge Lane would move on, but the internet's echo chamber would preserve the moment forever. Samuel exhaled, deciding his next video would be smoked salmon for stress recovery, a dish requiring patience, steady heat, and plenty of time, just like healing. 2 quiet weeks trickled by. Magnolia blossoms fragranced the sidewalks, Amazon vans reclaimed their throne as chief cul-de-sac spectacle. Samuel nearly convinced himself the saga had ended when a knock interrupted Monday meal prep. Standing on the porch, hands clasped, was Dylan Henderson. Gone were the gamer tees and slouch, Dylan now wore navy work pants streaked with PVC glue. His handshake felt firmer, his gaze steadier. "Mr. Grant," he began, voice earnest, "I owe you an apology, and maybe some thanks." Inviting him inside, Samuel listened as Dylan recounted the aftermath. Karen's treatment plan, Aunt Marjorie's stern budgeting lessons, and his own decision to enroll in Riverview Community College's plumbing apprenticeship. "Turns out, I like fixing things," he said, pride glinting like copper pipe. Samuel smiled, remembering his father's maxim that useful skills are recession-proof. Dylan produced a small envelope, first-month wages from installing water heaters, and insisted on paying Samuel back for any trouble. Samuel declined the cash but accepted a symbolic $10 bill to honor Dylan's intent. Conversation drifted to pressure gauges and thermal expansion tanks. Dylan's enthusiasm felt contagious. Somewhere between sigh ratings, he described how being expected to earn his own path felt liberating, not burdensome. "Mom always said a desk job was my destiny, but swinging a wrench makes sense to me," he said. Before leaving, Dylan offered to inspect Samuel's aging water softener. In the basement, he replaced a cracked O-ring gratis, sealing both leak and lingering tensions. They parted with a promise of future cookouts, Samuel providing ribs, Dylan handling utility fixes. Word of Dylan's transformation spread. Neighbors previously wary of Henderson drama now greeted him warmly when his apprentice van appeared. Marcia hired him to unclog a slow drain, Lyle had him quote a tankless heater upgrade. Dylan's confidence grew with each completed ticket. Karen, still under outpatient care, sent handwritten letters, one to Samuel, acknowledging her crisis and pledging restitution once debts were settled. Another to the HOA, promising to respect community guidelines. The board archived the note, relieved to avoid further headlines. Samuel sensed a narrative pivot. The viral hashtag storm quieted, replaced by local interest stories about trade careers. Riverview College invited him and Dylan to co-speak at an open house. Samuel on setting boundaries, Dylan on finding unexpected purpose. Their candid dialogue, equal parts mea culpa, financial literacy, and career realism, drew a standing ovation from parents wary of ballooning university costs. Back home, Samuel recorded a collab cook episode featuring Dylan installing an outdoor sink before joining him to baste ribs. Viewers applauded the redemption arc, ad sponsors took notice, nudging Samuel's modest channel into healthier revenue. Irony tasted sweet. Karen's attempted shakedown inadvertently boosted the very income she'd exaggerated. Yet amid the uplift, Samuel kept perspective. Karen's gambling debts loomed, foreclosure whispers circulated, and mental health recovery was never linear. Still, seeds of change had sprouted in soil once scorched by confrontation. Oakridge Lane felt sturdier, united not by scandal but by shared commitment to accountability and second chances. As dusk settled, Samuel lit citronella torches and reflected on the odd alchemy of brisket smoke, viral videos, and human resilience. Sometimes the recipe for peace required equal parts boundary, empathy, and a dash of unexpected mentorship. Late July ushered in 95-degree afternoons and cicada serenades. One sweltering Wednesday, Samuel's doorbell chimed again, this time delivering Aunt Marjorie with a folder of legal papers. She explained, eyes weary, that Karen's gambling debts, credit card cash advances, online roulette, had snowballed. Lenders were accelerating a foreclosure sale on the Henderson house. Karen's therapist says transparency is part of healing, Marjorie sighed, handing Samuel copies of notices in case reporters resurfaced. Samuel thanked her, heart heavy for Dylan, who stood by the truck loading boxes of childhood keepsakes. Neighbors rallied. The HOA launched a weekend porch sale for recovery, where proceeds from lemonade, crafts, and Samuel's famous pulled pork sliders would seed a modest relief fund for Dylan's trade school tools and Karen's therapy co-pays. Even residents who once clenched purses around the Hendersons donated gently used furniture. Local media returned, but this time the headline read, "Community turns crisis into compassion." A news clip showed Dylan tightening a hose bib on Marcia's house while thanking Oakridge Lane for giving him a fresh blueprint. Meanwhile, Karen, still barred from the street by a protective order, sent video updates from therapy, acknowledging responsibility and cheering Dylan's apprenticeship victories. Internet comment sections softened, trolls moved on. Yet foreclosure loomed. Dylan accepted that losing the house might be a painful but necessary reboot. Samuel spent one Saturday helping him photograph items for online auction, Karen's crystal vases, a rarely used treadmill, an antique poker set, grim souvenirs of debts accrued. During breaks, they cooled off with sweet tea, discussing compound interest, credit scores, and the difference between healthy risk and reckless bets. Closing date arrived under a hazy August sunrise. A real estate investor purchased the property for cash, planning to flip it. Dylan watched the transaction stoically, then shook Samuel's hand. "It's just a building," he said. "Home is where you choose to build." He moved into a modest apartment near the community college, first month's rent covered by plumbing paychecks and porch sale proceeds. The day after the sale, the HOA replaced the Henderson mailbox post, painting it neutral white as a symbol of fresh starts. Lyle joked that maybe the new owners would be less dramatic. Marcia countered that Oak Ridge Lane had learned enough about viral fame for one decade. Everyone agreed. Samuel uploaded a reflective video titled, "When Smoke Clears, Lessons Beyond the Grill." He spoke of budgets, boundaries, and the dignity of honest labor, then shared Dylan's journey with permission. Commenters lauded the neighborhood's shift from clickbait chaos to constructive support, and sponsors pledged donations to Riverview's Trade Scholarship Fund. That night, Samuel sat alone beside the refurbished porch swing, now sturdier than ever, listening to crickets and feeling the subtle peace that follows a storm skillfully weathered. September's first cool front drifted in, rustling maple leaves and hinting at football season. On a crisp Saturday, Riverview Community College hosted its fall career fair. Booths showcased welding rigs, CAD demos, and yes, a gleaming display from Bluestream Plumbing, Dylan's employer. Samuel attended as honorary speaker on financial literacy for first-year apprentices. Dylan, sporting a company polo, demonstrated pipe threading to high school seniors. Between sessions, he confided that Bluestream had offered tuition reimbursement if he pursued night classes in project management. "I want to run my own crew someday," he said, eyes bright. Samuel applauded the ambition and suggested starting a modest emergency fund first. They drafted a simple budget on a pocket notepad. 50% necessities, 30% goals, 20% fun. Dylan laughed, realizing fun money still bought plenty of streaming subscriptions without roulette tables. Later, a local news anchor interviewed them beneath college pennants. Instead of sensationalizing past drama, the segment highlighted skilled trades as viable paths and emphasized mental health resources for families in financial crisis. The anchor signed off. Sometimes the best comeback stories begin with neighbors who refuse to stay silent, or spiteful. Back on Oak Ridge Lane, the investor's flip progressed quickly: fresh siding, energy-efficient windows, drought-tolerant landscaping. The HOA admired the upgrades and invited Samuel to record a walkthrough for his channel, turning renovation into educational content on sustainable home improvements. On Halloween, the cul-de-sac revived its block party tradition. Kids in superhero costumes darted between themed stations. Samuel smoked applewood sausages while Dylan installed a temporary hand-washing sink, earning high fives. Even Lyle donned a goofy plumber's cap, declaring himself Dylan's marketing intern. Just after dusk, Marjorie arrived with news. Karen had completed her 6-month therapy program, secured a library assistant job, and was renting an efficiency apartment near her support group. She asked if Oak Ridge Lane might eventually welcome her at events, pending court approval. The board agreed to discuss it once the protective order expired, balancing caution with compassion. Samuel pondered the notion. Forgiveness, he mused, wasn't a free pass, it was a forward-looking choice to nurture healthier chapters. Dylan echoed the sentiment, noting his mother's therapist encouraged gradual re-entry grounded in accountability. For now, distance served everyone's peace. The evening ended with sparklers and cinnamon cider. As embers floated skyward, Samuel felt gratitude, for a neighborhood resilient enough to hold boundaries, generous enough to foster growth, and wise enough to roast marshmallows over lessons learned without burning futures anew. Winter arrived softly, layering Oak Ridge Lane with frost so delicate it looked sugar-coated. Standing on his porch, Samuel Grant traced the season's hush and felt, finally, a deep-seated equilibrium. The Henderson house, now painted sage green, had sold to a young nurse and her firefighter spouse, both excited for quiet morning jogs and holiday cookie swaps. They knew the property's backstory but cared more about its renovated kitchen and friendly cul-de-sac. Oak Ridge Lane, like people, could reinvent itself. Samuel's channel surpassed 50,000 subscribers, buoyed by viewers drawn to barbecue tips wrapped in life lessons. His most watched upload wasn't a brisket tutorial but Boundaries at the Grill, a candid talk filmed beside slow-smoking turkey legs. Ad revenue funded a small scholarship, the Samuel Grant Trades Grant, open first to Riverview apprentices. Dylan was its inaugural recipient, using the stipend to buy specialty tools and a codebook for licensing exams. 1 week before Christmas, a plain envelope arrived postmarked from Karen. Inside lay a simple card: "Samuel, thank you for standing firm. Your no became the brick road to my son's yes. May your holidays be warm." She enclosed a photocopy of the first page of her new checking account ledger, balanced, no overdrafts, a humble badge of progress. Samuel placed the card on his mantle beside family photos. Peace, he realized, sometimes looks like a line of balanced numbers and a handwritten apology. He texted Dylan a picture of the card. Dylan replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a snapshot of his latest plumbing certificate. That night, Samuel lit his fireplace, sipped hot cocoa, and stared through frosted glass at the street lamp glow. In the quiet he heard distant laughter, the gentle click of a thermostat, the soft creak of a porch swing rebuilt stronger than before. Life was never drama-proof, but it was decidedly resilient. He raised his mug to the window, an invisible toast to brisket smoke, to boundaries that protect and heal, and to second chances sturdy enough to hold the weight of hope. Oak Ridge Lane, once headline fodder, now simply felt like home again.